Welcome. This is Lisa with Queen Bee Creations. Welcome to today's live. We are doing simple stamping today. That means that you can do this with no die cutting machine, that we can do this with punches or just straight cutting and minimal supplies. And we're going to try to make it easy, but we are doing a fun fold. I can't help myself. I just love them. And so we're doing this card right here, which actually pops up in a twisted easel and goes this way. So we're using the Darling Dinos stamp set. This is something that one of my customers actually purchased, and she dropped it off and she said, come up with some ideas. So here we are, coming up with an idea. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, as I said, it's a Darling Dino. She just came by with the stamp set. There is actually a set of dies that coordinates with it that will cut out all the little pieces for you. Or if you have a Brother Scan and Cut, that would be an awesome set to work with because it's not got these nice, clean, even edges. And that's one of the things that the Brother Scan and Cut likes to see is a very defined edge to do its cutting. It works really well with those. Okay, this is our card. It opens this way, but also this way. We're going to start out with a Granny Apple Green base, and then we're going to add Garden Green. Okay, so this piece right here is 9 3/4 by 4 1/4. And then it's scored at 4 1/4. Or if you were to go this way, it's scored at 5 1/2. That might make more sense because overall we wanted to end up with 4 1/4 tall, 5 1/2 wide. And then I made the front 4 1/4 by 4 1/4 so that we could diagonally score it down the middle. So when I had this open, this one and this one were both valley scores, which means that they will dip in. When they go this way, this is a mountain. Okay. I have some additional pieces over here. I have this piece here that is 5 1/4 by 4. That's going to go on the inside. And then we also need this piece here, which is 1 1/2 by 4. And we're going to end up putting this right over the top, and we're going to pop it up on dimensionals. And then we're going to add some designer series paper to the top. Now, this designer series paper is actually just the Color Family's designer series paper. Do you guys know that all of our colors come in this designer series pack that is all of the colors? So this is all of the neutrals. So you get one, or actually you get a couple. You get 2 of every color. If you get the in colors, you get, I think, 4 of every color. But the basic gist is you get all of the colors in the same pattern. So there is the leaves on one side, the flowers on the other. And then when you flip it over, we have kind of a tie-dye and then a speckled. So they're very good neutral backgrounds, which I really like. Okay, for the front, I have a piece of Garden Green that is 4 by 4. And then I have a piece of basic white that is 3 3/4 by 3 3/4. Okay, I have a delay on my screen. I hope my video is not delaying for you guys. Let me know if it looks a little funky. I don't really have any other devices going on, so I don't know why it would be. Okay. So as I said, this is going to go inside. You know how I always like to get pieces out of the way right away, if we can. And if you wanted to stamp an inside greeting, this would be a good time to stamp it before you adhere. just in case there's a boo-boo, you can flip it over and stamp on the other side. They say that's why paper has two sides. You can tell I probably need to redo my blade in there. I've got a little bit of fuzz. If it does, then you want to take a emery board or some fine sandpaper and just give it a little drag along the edge. That'll take those little fuzzies off. Also, another thing you want to do is check your trimmer and make sure it does indeed need the blade, because if there is dust inside this, if you drag along here, you'll pick up little fuzzies that will be in there. And then you'll want to clean that out, because sometimes it's just a matter of too much buildup of cardstock fibers in there. And I got talking and didn't do this the way I wanted to do it. Okay, I want to actually pop this up on dimensionals, but see, I already put tape on it. That's okay. I'm going to come in with the edge of my mini dimensionals tape, or my, mini dimensionals. This is the edge. And I'm just going to cover those up. So I'm still popping it up on dimensionals, and I'm covering up what I put there and didn't mean to. If you don't have that option, one of the things you can do is use our embossing buddy to just dab onto that adhesive that you put on. It will take it off. Or there is, of course, the adhesive remover, the eraser little square that we have. That would work too. This one goes flat. The reason I wanted that up on dimensionals is when we go ahead and bend the front, I want it to have something to rest against. Oh, did I do this the wrong? OMG. It meant to go this way. We were working on my book today earlier, my editor and I. We were just saying how lately it seems like I make more mistakes than get them straight. Okay, so the reason it's up on dimensionals is that it's going to butt up against that, and that's going to catch it. Okay. Now, the way that we see the whole thing is I'm going to take this green piece and we're going to layer it over the top. And what I want to do is take these points of my square and align them with that score line. And that's going to make sure that I'm even all the way around. Okay, now we're ready to do some stamping. So we're going to be stamping on this little 3 3/4 by 3 3/4 square. And then I wanted to have them standing on something. Now we can do this two different ways. When I initially stamped it, I started out with a smoky slate background and tried to color that in. I found I lost too much of the definition on them. Because I went with darker colors, trying to cover up the fact that their feet didn't quite hit the little hills, and I wanted it to look like they were out in front. And I didn't mask them. And that's would have been the ideal thing to do, is I should stamp them and then mask them and then stamp the hill. But because I didn't, I went ahead and stamped the little rocks. And then I used those rocks to cover up where their feet were overlapping onto the hill. And that hill I got from the Terrific Toadstools. Okay, so we can use the hill, or if you have other stamps, there's many stamp sets that have grass, that have all sorts of things that we can use as the hill that they're standing on. But if you don't, you can use the blending brushes and some garden green ink and do that across the bottom. I did this in 3 generations, meaning I inked the stamp one time, and then I stamped it a second time, and then a third time, and it just gave me kind of 3 different colors of green. Okay. But we'll go ahead and do this correctly this time. So I'm going to bring out some of our Stampin' Up! Masking paper. And if you don't have this, then possibly a Post-it note or something would be a good thing to use. You just want to make sure that you're using the sticky part. But let's see, I'm going to take and just stamp these 2 guys. And then I won't need to fussy cut the whole thing because I really only need their feet. Okay, that's the part I want to cover up. Ugh. We want to stamp on the dull side, not the shiny side. Okay, so I'm just fussy cutting these out. If you have the dies, go ahead and use the dies. But since I don't have them, I'm improvising. Should have done this ahead of time. I didn't think about it. Okay, because this is the first time I'm using this particular mask, what I'm going to want to do is stick it to my dress, stick it to my skin, something to make it a little less sticky, because the first time you use it, it is very sticky, and it may not peel off the cardstock as easily as you would want it to. Okay. But I'm going to come in with the Memento Black, which I had over here and just stuck my elbow in. And I'm going to ink up the one little dinosaur. I'm going to put him on this side. And then I'm going to do this guy on the other side. Then I'm going to take my little mask. And as I said, I want to get some oil from my skin or little fibers from my dress, something that will make it still be sticky, but not too sticky. And then we're going to lay it right over the top of what we just stamped. Yikes. Come on. There we go. Okay, now I'm free to stamp the grass along the bottom. So I'm bringing in garden green and that hill stamp out of the terrific toadstools. Okay, so I'm going to ink this up and then just stamp across the bottom. Best to look straight down from the top. So you may need to stand up to be able to see properly. But what I'm doing is I'm letting it hang over the edge just a little bit. So that I am for sure getting the bottom. Okay, then I can come back and take off the mask. And now you can see where they are firmly planted onto the little hill. But we still see their feet. So I'm going to save these little masks. I just usually stick them on the inside of the case, you know, so I can go back and use them again later. Okay. So I stamped a sentiment up here in the corner. I'm going to go ahead and do that before the balloons so that I know I am leaving myself enough room for the sentiment. So that comes in two pieces. So it says roar means, and then in dinosaur. So it's got kind of this blank space through the middle. And what that allows you to do is use some of the other roar means you're the best in dinosaur, or roar means I love you in dinosaur. Roar means happy birthday in dinosaur. Roar means you're terrific in dinosaur. So you can pick and choose which one of these sentiments that you would like to add into the middle. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp the first one. Oh, and this would make more sense to me if I could see the edge. So sometimes if you're looking at something and you're looking down from the top and it's white on white, you may want to put something of color underneath of it so that you can see where the edges are. And then I have, yeah, I love you. This time I'm going to do that in Granny Apple Green. Ugh. Sorry, just stuck my finger in that. So I do tend to keep baby wipes nearby so that I can clear off my hands when I stick them in the ink pad. I thought when I no longer had babies in the house, I wouldn't need these, but I do. They come in very, very handy. I always have them on the table in class because sometimes newer stampers will get more ink on their fingers than they mean to. Okay. So now we're ready to do a little bit of coloring. So I'm going to come in with the Stampin' Blends. And I am going to use the Misty Moonlight. I'm going to use the dark of the Night of Navy and Balmy Blue for my first little Triceratops over here. So I'm going to use the light Misty Moonlight. Because I want to blend this with the Balmy Blue. So I don't want this too dark. So you'll notice I'm not really coloring it in all the way. I'm going to take my Balmy Blue and I'm going to swirl it in. And so this is going to blend the two of them together. You want it good and wet. It should like leak all the way through the back side of the paper. Because the wetter it is, the better it's going to blend, which is also why you need to work quickly when you're working with the Stampin' Blends. You may want to play around on scrap paper and blend some different colors together and see if you like, Cajun Craze and Calypso Coral, or you can have some colors like blend into one another, maybe Highland Heather, Gorgeous Grape. I don't know, play around with them and see what colors will blend well. Sometimes it's even maybe a crushed curry and a light pumpkin pie. You'll be surprised at the great combinations you can get. Excuse me. So I'm coming back in with my light Misty Moonlight. Just giving it a little bit. Then I'm going to come in with my dark Balmy Blue and swirl over the top of it. And then I'm going to do light Balmy Blue and swirl over it again. And I'm going over the first color I used, the second color I used, and blending it in with the third. The Stampin' Blends do have the two ends to them, so sometimes I'll get a little bit lighter color out of the skinny end versus the fat end, this brush tip. So again, play with it on scrap paper, see what you like. Going to use a really dark blue down here for his little nails on his feet and the circles on his back. Okay, so there's one of them. And you'll notice I got my mask a little bit low, so there's a little bit of a gap down there between the hill and his feet. Again, I can cover that up with the rocks, or I can come in with our Stampin' Right markers. The Stampin' Right markers are the same kind of ink. It's a water-based ink, and that's what's in our pads. So sometimes you can come in with the coordinating Stampin' Right marker, and then you can use this to come in and just make little corrections. And I didn't go all the way to the edge down here like I meant to, so maybe I'm going to pull this across. But you can see how you can use your Stampin' Right markers to make little mistakes. Oh, and make big mistakes. Okay, something's going to have to go over there. Okay. So I'm going to come in with the balloon. I think a green balloon coming in from the side will be perfect for that. And I just had my black. Here we go. Okay, now there is a little string that comes with it, and you can use that and stamp the string, or you can again come in with the Stampin' Right markers and then kind of just draw your own strings coming down. That was easier for me because I needed it nice and long. And then, let's see, I'm going to color in those balloons. So I've got blueberry bushel here. Figured I'd just go with some nice primary colors. Adding a little bit of dark just for some shading. I'm giving a couple coats to the outside, not as many to the inside, then maybe even switching to the smaller tip. And then if it still was too dark and I wanted to give it some highlights, then you may want to come in with a little bit of the color lifter, because that will kind of lift out some of the color. You can also use this if you happen to go outside of the lines, then you can use the color lifter to start away from it and push it back in. This particular marker, I've actually changed the tip on. I have a small video on my YouTube channel showing how I purchased some nibs off of Amazon and then redid the nibs on my markers. Because the nibs went a little bit mushy before I had a chance to actually use the ink. So again, I'm starting with the dark, giving it kind of a outlay around the edge, and then coming back in with the light and filling in. You can see how my balloons have a little bit of a gradient kind of to them, where they're a little lighter in the middle than they are on the outside edge. You can also come in with a white gel pen or a white pencil and give it a little bit of a highlight mark. So I've got our watercolor pencils here. So I'm just going to draw on the balloons here just for a little bit of highlight. Probably not going to show up on camera really well, but it does give it a little bit of a extra little something by highlighting with the white. And then we have one more dinosaur. So I'm going to bring in Granny Apple Green and Lemon Lime Twist. I'm going to start off on the bottom with the darker of the Granny Apple Green, because the bottom is where it would have the most shading. And then I'm going to work myself up to a little bit darker. So again, coloring right over the top, making small circles, which kind of drags it around and blends it together. And again, if we use kind of a darker color and wanted to give the eyes or the nose or the eyebrows a little bit of a lift, you can come back in with that basic black marker once again and just kind of go over the top, and that'll give them a little bit of a lift. I'm not sure that's enough contrast. What do you think? I'm going to come in with something a little different. There we go. That pops a little better. Okay. So now we're ready to adhere this to the front of the card. The actual garden green square doesn't have any adhesive on this side so that it allows it to do its pop. But because this one's going to go with that one, they can be adhered completely. You see what I mean about how much ink you're using and how it bleeds through to the back? That is totally normal and expected. And there we go. There is our Twisted Easel Darling Dinos birthday card. Oh, this one has some blending. I used the blending brush and swirled some balmy blue ink around the edge. So if you wanted that, or you wanted to add the little rocks along the bottom, you're welcome to do that as well. Just to play around with it, get creative, and figure out what you like. Okay, are there any questions? Just looking through all the little comments. Yes, it does make a great kids card. So thank you for being with me. We will be back here on Monday for another fun fold card at 2:30 on YouTube and Facebook. And I look forward to seeing you then. Thanks. Bye.